Okay. We all ready? Everybody ready? Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Wednesday, September 6th, 3 o'clock. This is the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners Workshop. The agenda today is legislative priorities. If you'd all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we always do, we'll have a short moment of silence where I encourage you to think about our first responders and how appreciative we are to have them here and how thankful we are to be in Flagler County and in the great state of Florida. And also to our men and women in the armed forces standing the watch around the world. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Well, welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you. So Holly Albanese is our legislative director. And Holly, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Holly Albanese, Chief of Special Projects, Library Director, today Legislative Liaison. So we're going to talk about, once again, the legislative priorities. We brought these to you in workshop number 1. Of course, we've been working very diligently on these. I think you have a copy, the backup, the printed copy, giving you all the breakdown of each legislative funding request and policy priority. And then we also have a presentation today on that. So I'm going to go through. I'd like to just briefly mention the ones we've talked about before, not necessarily go into any too much detail, and then talk about the items that we haven't discussed. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. Oops, did I do it twice? Okay. So important dates to remember. We talked about this being a compressed timeline, and it really is. So October 13th is the Flagler County delegation meeting. That will be here in the chambers, and it starts at 3 o'clock. It's 3 to 5. November 14th is the submission deadline for appropriations project request forms. So that's the date I have to have those House and Senate forms in. January 9th, that's when the regular session convenes in 2024. January 16th is the submission deadline for the attestation forms, which are required for anything that moves forward to bill status. And then March 8th will be the 60th day or the last day of regular session. Now, just because the session ends, we might know at that point if the legislature has appropriated funds for our project, but we won't know until the governor does his line item veto, and hopefully our projects remain at that point. So we're going to start with the policy priorities again. We have added 2 policy priorities to this. Most of them are the same, but the first one I want to talk about is the amend Florida Statute 288.0656, and it's Section 2E, to increase the population levels of a defined rural community. This has to do with our ready status. Most of you may know we're on the cusp of losing our ready status. We're at 124 and change of population. We only have ready status because we're contiguous to Putnam County, which is at 74 change of population. And what's going to happen is next year we will be over 125. That population will come out April 1st, 2024. And when we go over the 125, we'll no longer qualify. This is imperative to get them to change this. This hasn't been changed since 2009. There's only been 2 times that I could find going back in the statutes, and online they go back to 97. And when you look at them, at this one in particular, it was changed in 2001, and it was the population level for the county itself. So it went from 50,000 to 75,000. And at that point, being contiguous, the population level was 100,000. In 2009, the regular population for county qualifying was still 75,000, but the population for a contiguous county went from 100,000 to 125. But since 2009, and with all the growth that we've had in the state of Florida, that has not been adjusted, modified, or reviewed that I'm aware of. But I'd like it to bring it to the, our legislatures, bring it to the forefront, because this will affect us in so many ways. One of the items that we have on here is to increase financial support of SCRAP and SCOP. We will no longer qualify for those if and when we fall out.
Is Chris Dillon working this issue?
I don't know. We will contact Chris when we get.
Talk to him about it.
Yeah.
We bring it up a lot. We say, hey, are we going to get boosted up?
Right.
And I don't recall him answering. Does anybody recall? Did he ever say?
No, I think that group, his group, they keep keeping us in, but it's an issue that they ought to be on top of.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really not an issue for them. Their issue is making sure that SCOP and SCRAP are funded, but all the other counties really, it's not a concern of the small counties.
That's
What, to raise the level? I'm talking about raising to keep us qualified.
Correct. It's not, it's all of the counties that are in the small county coalition are,
They don't care.
yeah, that's not an issue. Not to say they wouldn't support us,
That's what I'm saying, support in their
it's
legislative.
just not on their radar screen.
Yeah, yeah.
There
I
are,
still think it's worth
Yeah.
I think
bringing
it's
it
worth.
up.
I agree with you, Commissioner. I think
Yeah.
that's worth the conversation.
Okay, let's get a hold of him. And
I will definitely do that. There are 32 counties right now. We're one of 32 that qualify for ready status.
Right.
But we're, with us and Putnam are probably the closest, because Putnam, I don't believe, is contiguous to another county that would leave them qualifying. So potentially, when they, we both could fall out at the same time. If they go over 75,000, we go over 125, we could both fall out at the same time. It would be, detrimental, and especially to them, because they also qualify for the distressed county funds. So I don't know if they'd qualify for that anymore.
Article where it stated 15.
Sorry, Commissioner Dance, your mic's not on.
Thank you. But so I'll just say again that the fax sent us that news clip about 15 others, so it's
Yeah.
rampant
issue.
throughout.
Yeah, it's an issue. Yeah.
And besides losing SCRAP and SCOP, right now, because we're a ready status, a lot of grants that we apply for require a match. And you can't, once you're out of ready status, you can't request a waiver for that match. And some grants do allow that. So it is important to Flagler County. I think that since they haven't modified or adjusted the population levels since 2009, and there has been significant population growth in the state of Florida, it is worth looking at. So I will mention it to Chris Doolin, but it is on our policy priorities. And if you guys deem appropriate, we will push it forward, and it'll be part of our program going forward. So then the second one that I do want to highlight out of here, it was brought to me by the Finance Department, has to do with the provide timely reimbursements, and upon approval of a grant over $1 million, assist with cash flow through fronting a percentage of the project. So we've had a lot of projects this year, especially with the dunes and the restoration. It's been, upwards of 16, 17 million. We just had another 35 million. And the problem is, it's, you have to have good cash flow. And I guess the reimbursements used to be monthly, and now they're quarterly at the state, and that does have an impact. And if you have to borrow money in the meantime, while you're waiting for the reimbursements, it costs money to borrow money, and then it also affects your credit rating. So we need to find a way with the state, working with the state, to find a way to, one, make those reimbursements timely, and then maybe there's a way of providing a percentage up front when they approve a grant that helps give us that little cash flow so that we can keep the project moving forward without having to risk our credit rating and money in the budget. So that was the second one. Everything else that's on here is the same from the first workshop. If there's something you'd like to discuss again, I'd be glad to, but I didn't think we should belabor the point on everything that we've already discussed.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sullivan?
just one question. Number 4, continue financial support for the enhancement of, oh, no, the one above it. Continue support affordable and reliable high-speed internet throughout Florida.
Yes.
I guess I need an update. I thought we were pretty well, for our county, we're in good shape on broadband and internet connectivity. The programs are funded, so on. So why is that an urgent requirement for us this year?
Jorge, do you want to talk about that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yeah, for Flagler County, we are on track to complete all the passings that were provided to you. My understanding is that the completion of the project here should be sometime in March of 2024.
but was that just the first step, though, right? Weren't there 3 phases, and we were going to get the first phase completed, and then 2 and 3 were not funded?
Originally, there were 3 phases, but Charter was able to get an additional grant and collapse them all into one phase.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, and it's all paid for.
Well,
Does that get us North County like Marineland? And yet, we don't have that yet.
No, not Marineland, no.
I was just going to mention, I spoke with Chris of Spectrum this week because they're out in the West and people are asking questions. And
Right.
he said that I think one of his contracts isn't signed with the state yet. And some of these companies are now, the numbers are falling short of money that they got to actually get these projects completed outside of us, you know?
Right.
And so now the cost of labor is skyrocketed, the materials are skyrocketed, so they're having bigger discussions
I just
with
thought
state
we
and
had
federal.
identified where the
Yeah.
money was coming from. I know that Palm Coast, which is a big part of the county, is getting theirs all done. I just
Marineland's
wonder,
not on the list.
why is that still
I've been
like
trying to get them.
number 4?
Well, I think because we still have an area that, like Marineland, that's not on the list. So we have all the way up through there. We have, suddenly the
Well,
funds may not cover as much as,
I think some of it's covered along
Yeah.
the way.
I think it has to, I mean, it's just a larger discussion, but, I mean, I don't know why it would have to come off. It's a big.
Well, the state is still working through the process to get broadband expanded throughout the state. So it's
I
still
know, but that's
supportive.
not the job. That's the job of the legislative priorities I'm taking up to Northeast Florida, which are area-wide, and statewide more. No big deal. Leave it on if you want. I'm kind of also interested is, my feeling was we were in good shape on all that, and that the money was pretty well identified, and we're pushing forward. That's all.
Yeah, I think from a county
So it
perspective.
sounds like we are. Sounds like we're in
Yeah,
pretty
we
good
are in good
shape.
shape, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let me talk about that for a second. Yes, we might be in good shape, and yes, there are other, obviously, counties in the state that might not be in as good shape as we are, but asking them to continue to support the affordable and reliable high-speed internet throughout Florida has more of an impact on grant opportunities or funding opportunities for even the person, the resident, who may not be able to afford. Maybe they have access to that high-speed internet, but then may not be able to afford to actually pay for that internet access. So there might be grant opportunities created. As a matter of fact, the Office of Broadband, which is part of this, created a grant opportunity, which is something we're bringing to you on September 18th for the new Nexus Center. And it's because of those funds that we now have the possibility of getting $4 million for that center. If they had not put money into that bucket, we would not have it. So there's other reasons for supporting this. And I just want to remind you, these aren't really numbered, not
I know,
so
I know.
even though it's number 4 on that list, it's not necessarily number 4 of your priorities. So, anything else on the policy priorities? Any other questions? If
I
not,
think I sense we all agree, so.
okay, good. So we'll move to the funding priorities now. So, all right, so I think the last time we were here, we had 5 funding priority requests, and now we have 10. So it's quite a bit. We'll go through each one individually, but I won't go into depth on the ones we've already discussed previously. So the improvements to recreation fields and fairgrounds with an emphasis on emergency preparedness is still the same. We still want to create a special needs shelter down at the fairgrounds. We want to improve the fields, and we take that, what would become a special needs shelter when needed, could also be used as a facility for community events and that type of thing. So we still are looking to do that, and we're approximating that would cost $10 million to make those improvements. All right, so by providing the funding, we'll improve fields, relocate all activities associated with fairgrounds, and create a special needs shelter. The project will create a dedicated special needs shelter and allow us to reduce the deficit as defined by the state. And the site will act as a disaster resources site for the county and can be used to support our neighboring counties as well.
How are we going to title it, Ed? What's the title of that going to be?
As far as the project title, when we
Yep.
actually put it into the House form, we're not going to call it Flagler
I was
County.
going to say, yeah, okay.
No,
As long as you got something else to call it.
it's probably going to be improvements to recreation fields and fairgrounds. Or maybe we'll just keep the whole title, because we do want to emphasize that it has to do with emergency preparedness.
Yeah, I think I might start with that.
Yeah.
We're going to remind them it's state land. It's state land, right?
Yeah, it is.
Just so that they know
Yeah.
that they're improving their own.
We'll have to do that,
Okay.
Obviously, in the
Think about that
House
a minute.
form.
See if you can't wordsmith it so you start with the emergency preparedness.
Sure.
Maybe there's a way to do that.
Come up with a better project
great.
title, sure.
Thank you.
So the next one is the, what we talked about this morning. I know Amy Lukasik, the tourism director, updated you on this, but we gave it a different title, and this was based on our conversation in our meeting with Speaker Renner. And also the fact that NEFRC has indicated the potential that this could be a regional location for ecotourism. And so regional, the word regional has impact. Conservation, tying it to conservation has impact. So that's why we titled it Regional Conservation and Ecotourism Educational Center.
That's good.
So that's the title we came up with. I think I don't really need to go over this. I know Amy already went over a lot of it with you this morning. If you have any questions, I know Amy is here to answer more questions.
You got a typo in the first sentence of the second paragraph. 10,000.
Oh, yes. Didn't you catch that the last time and I
did,
didn't
I
adjust
did.
it? I remember that now. Okay, I'll change that. I apologize. But again, we're looking for $10 million. I think she estimated the total project at a little over 12, so we're looking for 10 million. And we know that providing funding will assist us to construct this facility and support the goals and objectives and priorities of Flagler County, the Northeast Florida Regional Council, and scenic A1A byways. The Educational Center will act as the main hub in Flagler County to protect, conserve, and enhance the recreational, natural, historical, and cultural resources. All right, the next one is to expand access to public health and social service providers through a public-private partnership. And as you know, that has to do with the health department, and the Flagler Cares would be co-located together on library property. And we talked about this previously, what it would do, how it would serve. I know that Bob Snyder is here, and he spoke the last time about this and how important it is to Flagler County. We would need $20 million to build it's like 25,000 square feet, which is in the neighborhood of what they were requesting. So 25,000 square feet at today's prices, we would need $20 million. So that's a big ask. If you have more questions, he's here today.
There's still not a reference to the DAV. I thought we've committed to the DAV that they would be part of this.
I mean, not that I'm aware of. We haven't talked about it. I haven't talked about it with administration. There's no opposition to it. I mean, DAV could be included, but
We had previously spoke, and I know that Mr. Hanger did actually come in and meet with Holly where we talked about it. As much as we're wanting him to possibly be co-located, I don't know that DAV wants to be co-located necessarily with the group. I know that in conversations when Holly had met with him, he talked about having a freestanding building, something of larger size, where he wanted to also have a clinic and some mental health component and some other things. So I'm not sure if it's completely compatible or not, and what his square footage requirements are. But we did talk about potentially creating a space for him, but it may or may not be what DAV, Mr. Hanger, was looking for.
Well, my sense is if that's the direction he's going, his own building, he needs to talk to Representative Waltz, not us.
I concur, and I think internally, we kind of had a discussion about there may be other property located in that general vicinity that is vacant and available that may be better suited for what he's trying to accomplish.
Well, I can talk to him, but I thought, and it's my mistake, I guess, I thought all along he wanted to be part of this. But if he wants his own building, I think that's out of our purview.
I think he does, he's talking more about their own facility. Yeah, that's the impression I got when I spoke with him.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted a minimum of 5,000 square feet. And even if he were willing to co-locate and be part of the same structure, that would increase the square footage to 30,000 square feet, which would then increase the ask as well. Because the square footage that we're talking about for the 20 million is just specifically for the Department of Health and Flagler Cares, all of that. But yes, he indicated to me he was hoping for his own building.
Have we identified land for possible sites for this facility?
Co-located with the library.
This that we're talking about here?
The health department with Flagler Cares? Yes, for the library in Palm Coast, not the Nexus Center. Yes, which is on 19 acres. So, did you have any questions for Bob? He is here. He could talk more about it if you do.
I think he's happy.
I hope so. Okay. All right, so if we get the funding, that'll assist to construct this true one-stop shop solution for health and social service care in Flagler County, and we'll be able to provide wraparound and expanded services for the residents of Flagler County. The next one is to construct a new general aviation terminal. We had talked about this previously as well. Nothing has really changed on this. It's still $10 million is what Roy had indicated he would need. He is here if you have any questions for him. But I think everybody knows that the airport is a huge economic driver for the county, so adding to this would definitely help in that area. So it's a 15,000 square foot terminal, and it would accommodate airport administrative offices and other public space, meeting space, and other things like that. So if you don't have any questions,
I guess my question before when we brought this up was the funding. So are we going to talk just about funding? Because I thought a lot of this, normally at the airport, comes out of general aviation funds.
Okay, so I think we talked about this previously, but my indication from Roy was that he had requested funding from FAA a couple of times and didn't get it, and I think it's on the FDOT list, but I think it's still 5 years out. And Roy's here. Roy can confirm that information.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Roy Seeger, Director, Flagler Executive Airport. So, as you all know, they had that bill funding come out a few years ago, the bilateral infrastructure law that came out. So every year I've been putting in for that as well. We have not got it. Not a lot of GA airports are getting it. Matter of fact, it's actually very specific to, it's $100 million across the whole country. So $100 million doesn't go very far when trying to build terminals, and it's specific just for GA terminals.
Okay. Just before we go on, we got pretty close to building this terminal, and then we decided to do the T hangars first.
Correct.
And the funding did the funding for the T hangars, would that funding have somehow been able to have been used for the terminal?
Correct. So that's what
Well, that was the decision that was made.
Correct. Right. So as anything, you look at a terminal building, right? So terminal buildings, they don't make a lot of money for you, right? They take operational costs. And so when I'm looking at my budget, I thought it was the best at the time, and it still is, to make more money for the airport. As you all know, it's an enterprise fund, it's a self-sustaining fund. Therefore, I wanted to make more money for the airport. Building the T hangars was a fiscal responsibility of making an extra $230,000 for that. Now, the FDOT is 100% supporting the terminal project,
Right.
but the problem is that they just can't throw $10 million at the Flagler Executive Airport in 1 year. It would be multi-funded. They did, actually, at our last CIP meeting, I just had it with them a couple weeks ago, they did state that, a matter of fact, they said, I don't know what we need to talk about, Roy, because we're just throwing all the money we have at your terminal building. So with that being said, and if you want to, what we could do too, we could reduce that number to make it a more palatable possibility, to make that number $5 million, and I think that'd be more palatable to get the rest of the money from FDOT.
That's not a bad idea. Do a little strategy there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think any strategy now, it's a different financial situation.
Right.
Than we had originally, and we want to do this. So we don't want this, if this gets rejected, then we start all over again next year, I guess.
Right, and this doesn't stop me, like, again, anytime, like, soon as I get the word that I can put in for that bill money, I'm putting in for the bill money. And like I said, FDOT, like right now, I have about $800,000 towards the terminal building, but like I said, they're gonna multi-fund it, like they did for the T hangar project, right? So we did that over 3 years. But right now, they maybe have, don't quote, it's about 2.5, 3 million funded over the next few years, and they're trying to get more. That's what I'm saying. If we reduce that to 5 million, I think it'd be more, if they saw that, I think it'd be more palatable for them to be able to come up the rest of the money.
And this is through DOT, a legislative ask through DOT?
No. See, that's what I don't want them to do that. So something what happens, the airports, when they ask for this funding, I don't want it to come out of the FDOT airport fund. I want it to come from their.
It's like road funding. It screws up their schedule.
It screws up the system, correct. And I've already, and airports do it all the time, and it really messes things up because basically they get told, hey, you got to get that money. And I've made it clear, when talking to Heidi and Holly about it, that I don't want to put it in if that money is going to come out of the FDOT fund because I don't want to screw up that plan.
So if we are including this, how does including this in our legislative priorities not screw up that plan?
Correct.
Just one
Did I
more
understand you
question.
correctly?
That wasn't an answer.
Does this not need to be here, but we still work on it as a priority, but it's not in this list? I'm
It's
afraid
still a
if,
list because this money is going to come from the basically the state general fund, not FDOT funding.
okay.
That's the plan.
But you said FDOT is still working on funding this.
Correct.
Yeah, you lost me.
Okay.
If I could, maybe I'll just explain. So there's a difference between FDOT program money versus general revenue that the state has. So what we're hoping is that general revenue at the state level will pay for this, not the program money, because as Roy alluded to, and we see it with transportation projects, if it's coming out of their program budget, that's where we run into an issue. But like with the appropriation that was provided last year, that was money awarded to City of Palm Coast for their westward expansion. That money did not come out of the FDOT program budget. It came out of general revenue at the state. The funds come through FDOT's office, but it's different money that they have, the different buckets of money, if you will. We're not going to know until we submit this, and then we're going to have to work with our lobbyists and our legislator to make sure that it's not impacting the program budget. Because if it is, I think what Roy's saying is we don't want to affect that routine, that we would, request that to be retracted. But we're not going to know until it gets up there and they're able to look at the budgets, look at the buckets, and see, what money do they have available.
I guess the question being if there's an alternate funding source, even though it may be a longer path to fund it through DOT, do we want this coming out of those legislative asks, general fund, competing with the other asks that we have?
I think that they come out of different buckets, if you will. So even among transportation projects, when they're looking at it, you've got your roads or your highway system, you have aviation, you've got ports, you have other modes of transportation. So they allocate different funding, whether it's program or maybe general revenue at the state, to different projects. I don't know that I would keep anything off the list. I think this is one, and Roy can probably speak to it. I think this is one that was recommended to Roy to submit for some funding so that, this money could be set aside for this purpose. It may be that when they look at it, if it is in FDOT's program schedule, maybe the state general revenue only has to come up with half or a portion of the total ask because it gets married up with FDOT program money that's dedicated for aviation. So it may be two different buckets, program and general revenues, that can be used towards it. But it's really up to the state and how they want to apply that.
Well, I would think that we should, if we do this, we need to watch it really close.
Correct.
And if it looks like it's going to FDOT funding, that we pull the plug on it and say, oh, we don't want that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And
So that'll be a job for our lobbyists to track it really closely and
right, and having the conversation with our legislators as well.
right.
I had just one general budgeting question on the enterprise fund. Do we have debt in the enterprise fund right now?
Yes.
So,
We do have set services before Roy, just to be clear.
okay, since we have the hangars and all that now, I mean, that's the other way of doing this, bonding it, right? And just getting a loan to build and then just pay it out of profits from the airport over the years.
Well, right, that'd be a long term. Right now, I'll be staying back about $654,000 of the T-hangar project once that's completed. So we'll pay that off, and then everything else.
Well, I'm
after
thinking
that.
if you're trying to, put together a package, you may have to mix and match.
You don't want, but all due respect, Commissioner, what you don't want to do, I don't want to go take a loan out, because what happens, then I don't have a grant. Because if you don't have the grant, then they're not going to fund it.
Okay.
Because then you would not get you'd say, then it'd be funding the whole 10 million ourselves.
We want to build, we don't want to just keep pushing the terminal out 10 years.
I agree.
And so I'm just trying to
That's
come
why
up
I think it'd be
with-
more palatable, if it's okay, to move that number to 5 million, and it'd be easier to get, I think it'd be easier to get to the other 5 million from FDOT.
Okay. I don't have a
Rather
problem
do
with
that.
You have any problem with that, anybody? No?
Would rather do that.
5 million it is.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll make that adjustment. All right. Moving forward. Okay, so the next one is to support acquisition of conservation lands. We had some good luck last year in getting some conservation lands under the requested funding for legislative priorities. And this one in particular, I've been working with Mike Lagacy, and this would help us to create a floodplain corridor and to protect drinking water, wildlife habits, and nearby communities. So he's identified some lands, and this would be about $10 million for that particular request. We already discussed this previously, but if you have any questions on this item, Mike is here, I think.
Just,
Oh, yeah, Mike is here as well.
who owns the lands now?
I believe they're owned by different,
It looks like it's out in the western part of the county. That's not where Palm Coast is expanding. Okay.
Hi, Mike Lagacy, Public Lands. The question was who owns the land? It's various owners throughout those. What you see in the yellow blocks there are owned by different, in some cases, families from the county. In some cases, I mean, all families, but some are owned by families in the county with multiple parcels, and some are individual owners. But those parcels were put together in looking at how the creeks, Little Hall Creek, Middle Hall Creek, and a larger kind of wetlands swamp in the north, and then this, what they call Quigley Bay. These are all kind of big water resource areas, and so we kind of looked at them on a map, sent out some letters. We've been getting calls back, so we do have interest from that side of things.
Is the interest in actually selling the land, or is the interest in putting it in a conservation bank?
It's still early, so we're talking to folks, and I've explained to them like some of those options.
Yeah.
And I think easements does seem to be the preferred option for a lot of folks because, one of the things that we talk about, and you'll see it in the language there, is like people want to maintain their way of life.
Right.
And so the easement allows them to continue to do a lot of what they're doing, but also, get some compensation for some of the development rights.
Yeah, House Speaker Brenner is big on that. And
yeah.
put money in the budget.
Well, it's cheaper.
Yeah, right, and you maintain the land, not developed, but the people still own it. They just agree long-term to not use it for
Not to use it, yeah. Good.
I would like to see us push that way as much as possible.
We got a legislative ask last year, right?
We did.
Okay, and that was for the Florida Wildlife Corridor.
Correct. I mean, everything kind of steers towards the Florida Wildlife Corridor. It's a big state priority.
Right.
And so these properties, that hashed area is the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And so we've kind of identified areas within that corridor as a
good.
priority.
Now, when do we get some wins, though? I know you're working a lot of deals, but...
That's tricky, right? Yeah.
Right, and is there time limits on the funding?
Yes. So on the funding we received last year, we have essentially a year from July and then potential to extend into December. And so I've been working, the money that we received is actually, we didn't know until a little into July where the money was coming from. It's coming through FWC, through a conservation funding program with them. And we've been working with them to speak to some of the folks on the last year's budget request. You saw these things. We have a couple of primary property owners, and we're in negotiations with them now to get site visits together to accumulate partners so that we can make that money spread. And so it's in progress, but I don't have any wins to put on the table today, sadly. It's a time-consuming process.
So I did want to point out that this is more vague so that you have a better ability to go and find different lands, because we kind of pigeonholed ourselves last time by very specific lands. And unfortunately, the cost of land's gone up around here to where
Right.
it's more difficult to
Hard to
acquire
buy.
now.
Yeah, it's hard to buy.
What we didn't realize last year was by naming the properties specifically,
Yeah.
that's what was legislated. So we can't say, these 5 people aren't selling, we're going to buy this other property over here, without going through the legislature. So my hope is that the way that Holly's crafted this time, it's showing properties, but maybe there's a way to make sure that it's understood that, well, what I would like to see, and maybe we should talk about it a little bit more, is the idea of mentioning that properties that are within our ESL program and have been approved by a citizen advisory board, just to have that general term so that we can keep bringing in properties as things go, when the money comes in, so we can really have a broad option. That's what happened last time, was we identified 5 blocks, and now those 5 blocks are what we have to buy. Hopefully we can.
Right.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Mike.
last year, the verbiage did include specific locations. The map there does not have to be included as part of the backup, so we can keep it more ambiguous as to what parcels will buy or what easements will retain, and that way he has more flexibility, and as Mike said, maybe we just use his ESL list. Okay, and that is 10 million we're asking for, but Speaker Renner does seem very supportive of anything going towards conservation, so. So the next one, this is a new one. It's for County Road 304 resurfacing, and there are actually 4 bridges that need to be replaced. So right now, it's an asphalt paved roadway, and it needs to be repaved. And so this 7.75-mile-long project would include paving, signing, and pavement markings, stabilized shoulders, and minor stormwater management improvements. And then there are 4 bridges. You see them listed there. Those bridges all need to be replaced. I worked with Faith Alkatib, the county engineer at the time, and this is some of the information that she provided to me. I think Hamid, the assistant county engineer, might be here as well. So if you have any questions on this particular project, somebody is here to speak to it.
Mr. Chairman, just one quick.
Yeah,
I
Dave.
wouldn't use that picture. It looks like the road's perfect. If you're gonna need to fix the road, put a crappy picture there.
Well, that's, yeah, and that's State Road 11, which they're getting ready to redo, but.
I mean, it's
not
got
even
304
counted.
It's got the
304 is the
reflectors, it's
crossroad, yeah.
painted.
I think I chose it
That's a
because
good
the
comment.
sign says County Road 304,
I
so
know
that's
that.
why
I
I
know that.
selected
But
the
that's the
picture.
crossroad.
Yeah, but this is not included in the packet. It's
Okay.
just for our purposes here.
That's a
So
good comment, Dave.
no worries on that. It will not be included in the packet. Obviously, if we provide photography evidence of the need, we'll provide the actual road and the structures, the actual bridges. But to prepare the presentation, this is what I had to work with, so. Do you have any questions on this? It's $27 million, if I remember correctly. To do the 7.75 miles paving was 16 million alone, and then the remainder was for the 4 bridges. So obviously, by receiving the funding, we'll be able to resurface and replace the 4 bridges, and it will promote and facilitate a structured approach to resilience planning by strengthening an existing arterial roadway network for residents. Businesses will be able to carry on with fewer interruptions and increased reliability, and the new bridges will also augment network redundancy and will further enhance emergency response and recovery efforts for people needing to respond in emergency and evacuate.
I would wordsmith that a little bit. I don't think they should call them outdated bridges. I think we should call them dilapidated bridges.
Okay,
I mean, we need
No,
a different,
sir.
you need a
Yeah.
different word there than
Sure.
outdated.
sure. We can do that. Okay, so our next one, again, a new one, is the Old Kings Road South project. What we're looking for is design, development, and environmental study, so a PD&E. So since 2000, from 2000 to 2010, population has doubled, and it's increased even since then. It's expected to double again by 2035. There's obviously local funding challenges keeping pace with the rapid growth and maintenance of the network lane miles and repairs and replacement of our roads very difficult. So these challenges are most evident in the county's transportation project, Old Kings Road South 4-lane widening, which serves as an alternate route to I-95 during closures, and it's a primary connection to the State Road 100 commercial corridor. The critical project will eventually expand evacuation zone capacity, add pedestrian paths on both sides, provide street lighting, accommodate alternate traffic patterns, and mitigate growth demands. So what we're asking for is phase 1, which is the project development and environmental study. And that's $4 million to do that.
Does that go to the county line, or does it go to Old Dixie?
That's my problem there because of
Yeah.
Volusia.
Yeah, just go to the county line?
Right now, it would, excuse me, it would go to the county line, but we would have to work with the TPO and the folks in Volusia County to get this on their radar for them to also look at doing. So if this meets with the board's approval, our next step would be to reach out to them, and hopefully they can either include in their request for this year money to finish it, or maybe they have it on their radar for their 5-year program with FDOT.
I defer to Dave, but that intersection has got to be
Yeah,
reworked.
the
It's really a
problem is-
bad
the problem
intersection.
is, the biggest problem is the where Old Dixie and Old Kings come together.
Right.
And there's a a 95 intersection right there too.
Right there, yeah.
That whole area there was poorly planned. In other words, the entrance to the shopping center, the entrance to the firehouse, the entrance to, Halifax Plant, all that, none of that was coordinated. And now you have this problem of, that we're talking about here.
Right.
So it has to be worked with Volusia. And so far, they haven't been interested, by the way. Andy, anything happening at the TPO?
No, I've tried to reach out. I tried to reach out to the new councilman for that area, but we've missed phone calls. So my intent was to get a working relationship about
Yeah,
what's going
we're gonna
on
have
in that area. I guess my only questions here is, so doing the PD&E, I mean, we've identified a variety of different issues on this road. I don't think the road is failing or even close to failing in its traffic. So at what point is this going to be reviewed and critically reviewed for not being near capacity and not warranted for a PD&E for 4-laning is my worry.
And I think in talking to Richard Zion about this particular project, part of the PD&E is to look at the stormwater component and to start identifying lands that potentially we may need to acquire for the future 4-laning. So we recognize that this is going to take time, but the first phase was to start with the PD&E as that initial look of identifying what areas where we think we're going to need stormwater capacity to be able to afford the expansion. Having a shovel-ready project does benefit us in the future, but timing-wise, we didn't want to wait until it is constrained or in failure, requiring that money to be spent at that point, but rather than having a shovel-ready project that may be over multiple years, it may, require us to purchase land for stormwater improvements. And, just my thought on this, if we can, this is really only for that PD&E, and if we can work with Volusia, maybe they don't put in a separate request, maybe we up ours and we make it kind of a joint Flagler-Volusia request, and we spell it out that, the area in Volusia is what they consider constrained. It is an alignment issue and a safety issue, and, maybe at least for the design phase, we can cover it as one project, and then, whatever that looks like moving forward as construction and identification of stormwater areas.
Yeah, I guess that's just my reservation. I mean, ultimately, right, so we've got the section north of 100, which is a 4-lane with a median, that was done by the property owners a long time ago from the city of Palm Coast, and they've got plans still to go north to Florida, Palm Coast Parkway eventually. They're just now getting funds for the north part of Old Kings Road, and that's been eons. I worry, one, I think it's critical that Volusia County be part of it because you can see the difference in where the county line is now. And it makes no sense to do this without Volusia's buy-in. And now, 70% of the road is all Palm Coast zoned as it is now. It's almost not even a county road anymore. But I think we're early. I think it's probably a need at some point. I think we're early in this process. I don't know that you need $4 million to acquire land for ponds potentially, but I don't know. I mean, if it's in here, I think it's really low on the percentage of getting funded list.
My understanding on the 4 million in talking to engineering is that normally the PD&E is about 10% of the total project, and they anticipate this project to be about 40 million.
If we did this, how many years is it good for? I mean, is this something that we do and then 4 years down the road, we want to do it and they say, oh, no, you got to do it again?
I mean, as with anything, I think that as you get closer to construction, look at Commerce Parkway, look at how long that had been actually went through a PD&E and went through a design only to get re-updated when funding became available. But the fact that you had what they deem a shovel-ready project definitely scored points with trying to get funding for future. So you may be doing this, and this may be 10 years down the road, but it's something that is going to be required. It is on your long-term plan. It is at the bottom of the list for, future FDOT, planning. But this would just elevate it, getting it ready so that if funding were to become available, sooner rather than later. Not saying that we would pave it or do the project in a year or two, but.
Question for Sean. There's a DRI on the north end of Old Kings Road that's stagnant, that had significant roadway improvements embedded into its approval. So how does this affect that?
The short answer is I don't know. I believe that's within Palm Coast jurisdiction.
It is.
So I don't know what they're exacting out of any proposed developments, if anything.
Right, so I mean, that's part of this process as well, is an approved DRI with entitlements and with certain improvements that have been already agreed to. I don't know the time limit. I don't know if those expire.
The developments on the west side of Old Kings are
East
all.
and west.
I thought that's all county.
No, that's all city. The city now has everything past the S-turns and now, I mean, they're in negotiations, I think, with Radiance that we approved, so it'll go all the way down. They acquired Old Kings Village, which is right next to our regional park site, so they're down between the campground and the S-turns on. So
didn't know that.
they've acquired
All that
almost down,
radiance, yeah, all that.
almost down the
Radiance,
plantation oaks,
they're
almost down
negotiating
to
with Radiance now also.
as I understood, there was. to
I
meet
would
their
assume
demand.
that they are not required to do anything to the road until the level of service fails. And if the homes aren't built until that time, then there could be some exactions. But short of that, there's likely not to be any exactions for the roadway
Would
from
the
that
PD&E
DRI.
then just set the level of expectations of if there is another big development that comes in or if that one gets revised since it's an old DRI? Yes, I just don't know if it hampers those
why-
negotiations.
To follow up on what you said, why are we doing this anyway if it's all going to be city? If the city's going to own all this?
Well, they don't own the right-of-way. It's a county road, but they would have the
Right.
properties on either side. It's the same thing we're dealing with
Same thing you're dealing with on Colbert Lane, where the
Right.
whole area is in the city of Palm Coast. The city has to have a willingness to take back the road. They're not just going to automatically take it from us, and I don't know if there's a willingness maybe at this point
We
to
just
take
add to
either
their
one.
$17 million shortfall. That's all it would do.
I would prefer to just scrap this, and I don't know if it's possible to go back and find something that benefits county residents on a county road that's failing, that is more of a priority.
I mean, I don't disagree. I think it's early. I think ultimately you've got the issue of not evacuation, but of kind of emergency planning when 95 shuts down. We've got it's almost have to,
Yeah, it fills up.
when we get that, the emergency response, sheriff's response and stuff, and available roadway capacity, it locks down the county when that happens. Not that it would just add more of a backlog, but it's, I have some reservations. I don't know if we're quite ready for this one yet, nor if it would even garner specific attention at the state level.
I don't know. The reason why, you mentioned it, the reason why it even made the cut or the list, it's not for a lack of other transportation road projects. We have a backlog. It was really the comments that had been made previously about evacuation routes and other, opportunities like this road presents with I-95. If it were to get closed down, traffic's being rerouted to an area that we know is constrained and has challenges. So does it, kind of rise to the level of needing attention? It's just an opportunity if you were able to get the funding to at least, take on one piece of it, PD&E, but we're not, married to the project or pushing. We just think that, it may be a good option, that's all.
I think it comes down to, right, when we're in front of our legislative delegation and pushing projects, I don't know if this one is going to garner that same enthusiasm as some of the other ones will, that have a big impact. And sometimes it takes repetition in our process to gain some traction. So,
Again, this is your legislative
Right.
agenda. You guys have, you choose what you want to push forward and what you don't. If this is not one of the projects, we'll just remove it from the list. It's,
Right.
I
just
wanted
say-
to like alleviate our immediate needs list, but this doesn't seem, I agree about it being an alternative route, but this isn't a paving, this is just sort of like a plan for a day when we have
Yeah,
$40
I mean,
million.
my problem, I brought this up over the last couple of years, but my problem is the problem down at the south end in Volusia, the connection of this road into Old Dixie Highway and 95, and that just happens to be in Volusia County.
we have both the intersections at each end of this road have issues, which also adds to that problem with with emergencies and the backlog. It's not so much the road's capacity or the need for that capacity on the road, it's those two intersections that are the problem. If this can address, if we reworded it to address those intersections, I think that has more of a grab to it for me, because those are both really important areas. One in front of Old Kings Elementary, and the commercial core there, and this one is a growth sector on that south end with residential developments, and it's just not a safe intersection. So I think the intersections are what is, to me, is the issue. So I don't know if the PD&E addresses those, I think those, as we've talked this through, and I think that's where the issue is the
Well,
intersections.
I think it's a good idea, but before we submit this, we need to talk to Volusia County, because that southern intersection that's Volusia County, it's not us.
And maybe they need help, maybe they're waiting for help. And if we've been,
I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Go
Finish
ahead,
up.
Don.
I was just saying, maybe they're waiting for some help. Maybe they don't have anything allocated, and this could help push their end forward. But, so I think if we had that discussion with them to find out if they're on board.
I mean, I take all your points. I just think it falls on deaf ears without coordination with, and a joint voice with Volusia County
County, right.
on the southern end especially.
think so.
And there's with Representative Leak, I mean, it's his district too, so there's good heft there on the legislative side. We just need to have communication with the council members.
And maybe it's not early, because there's still a lot of vacant land. I forget how many units was planned for that DRI, but it was in excess, probably 1,200 or so units. It was in excess at the time of 750, which is what triggered the DRI. And you add in Radiance and some of the other, there's only a handful of other vacant properties now because of the limitation with Graham Swamp, and then the interstate. But it's, there's growth potential down.
Do you go to the TPO meetings?
Yes.
Who is there a council person from that district? Do they go to the meetings as well? or
I
is
have
it-
not seen him there. I've seen a couple of the others, but ours is Kent for this area, and I haven't seen him there.
Okay, what I will say is that my hope was get a consensus tonight on what you want to move forward so that when I bring it back on September 18th, it's just a, formality of approving the entire agenda because, as I mentioned before, this is a compressed window. So I don't know if we have time to meet with the Volusia, individuals and TPO and rework this.
My sense that I'm hearing here is that we need to talk to Volusia County before going forward with this. Because I agree with Andy. I think the issues are the two intersections. And that one intersection's 100% in Volusia County.
And if for this year, if we don't get Volusia in your short time period, we keep working on it for next year. But it needs to, right, this is just part of the process. We hash these things out as we move along and try to make them as ready as possible.
And again, that's fine, we'll do that, but if I cannot get it reworked in time for the next meeting, then it may have to,
Then drop it off.
we'll have to drop it off.
Yeah.
If you're okay with that.
I agree.
That's simple, yeah. Everybody
Not
agree
that
with
it's
that?
not important, it's really important, but I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, we'll do that, we'll see what we can
Don?
do.
You okay with that? Yeah, all right.
But good discussion, so it's good to have these
Oh,
and bring them
absolutely.
forward.
Yeah, and again, we'll see what we can do. If we can't, it'll be dropped off for the next meeting.
Yeah, well, we have consensus, all five of us, so.
All right, great.
Okay.
All right, so the next one is an expansion of the FGUA utility for water and wastewater in the underserved area of the county along US 1. This is along the portion of US 1 heading into Ormond Beach. This area is part of an underserved area, and there's current and future businesses as well as home communities, and it would help by moving them from septic to sewer. Heidi has contacted FGUA, and I believe they like the idea of this moving forward. They are going to work with us, and they obviously operate the water and wastewater plant in this area. And so obviously there would be needed improvements to be able to extend that service. And my understanding also, the city of Bunnell has been working with this shortage of workforce housing, and they do have preliminary plans to build a community which will offer homes at price points that for first-time or entry-level buyers. But in order for that to happen, they need water and sewer. And so the developer will not develop the site unless we are able to provide that. So that's part of it. So we are looking to work with FGUA to see that the plant is upgraded to handle the extra capacity, and utility connections are made so that the current and future businesses and home communities may connect and get rid of the septic systems in this area and along US 1.
So the way I read this, it goes all the way to Bunnell. We extend the area of coverage.
I believe it goes to Commerce Parkway.
When we were looking at the original project, we have 3 interested parties, including a developer and some folks that are looking at future development in the area. It is along US 1 in the area where we had originally reached out to City of Ormond Beach to provide water and sewer. And then at the last minute, Ormond Beach kind of pulled back. We believe in talking to, we had a meeting, I think it was last week or the week before, between ourselves, City of Bunnell, and these 3 outside entities who had approached us. They've also approached FGUA about expanding the service area out to US 1. The immediate need is not going all the way up into Bunnell or even to Commerce. It is really, the immediate is right just north of the county line, kind of bringing it to, I guess for a comparison, the new gate maybe for Plantation Bay, that area. I don't know what cross streets you have there, but that general area, but it would be for the west side. It's an area that currently has well and septic. It is an area that is prime for commercial development as well as multifamily, affordable housing projects. They do have a bunch of different prospects that are interested. The issue is the lack of municipal water and sewer. In talking to the folks at FGUA, you know that I sit on that board. I'm just one individual, but I did talk to them about the need for potentially expansion in that area. It is in the unincorporated Flagler County area, not current City of Bunnell annexation. But what they had talked about was potentially expanding out across US 1 and being able to provide. They said that they had some immediate capacity for water and sewer, but this would be to, bring water and sewer across the street. It would be able to provide pump stations and necessary components to be able to bring it back to the plant. This is something that FGA was interested in. They were also going to be going through DEP's portal for different types of grants. It really focused on septic to sewer projects and improved water quality using one source rather than having, multiple, as you call it, like straws in the ground, taking from the aquifer. So it is something that they believe. They've seen this met with a lot of really welcoming reception at Tallahassee. They've been successful in other communities across the state of Florida in doing similar projects. So it is something that, if we would like to work in partnership with them, this is an opportunity to, kind of expand in that service area to the south.
Is this where we lost that
I
furniture
was gonna
building
say.
company?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
That's what I,
we lost that woodworking or furniture.
to me, this is critical for
Yeah, I think we-
economic development
Yeah,
down on
I
US
think we
1.
need it, but I would stress the septic to sewer a little bit more in the topic, in the headline.
Right, well, we have to, obviously, there's more wordsmithing that has to be done, and we're just started working with FGUA, and with their expertise and knowledge, they're going to bring a lot of that verbiage to this to, really ramp up this request and get it to where we need, but yes.
Yeah, because that rings a bell all the time,
Oh, yeah.
septic to sewer.
I remember that, that was.
That's why we
Or
received
it
the
didn't
$8
work out
million.
with Orman.
This one I'm excited about because I think that that's the perfect corridor for the
it is.
unincorporated to start getting commercial in.
Yeah, it's got some there now, but they're
Yep.
they're not on our system.
This is a great one.
All right, and so that funding request at this point is
a good one.
$5 million.
Don't get excited about that.
Okay,
It's a good one.
We'll put this one up at the top.
I like this one.
good.
It's also the kind of area that you see in other communities like Jacksonville that they're developing with affordable housing and those
Right.
kind of apartment
It's close
complexes
to
too.
Daytona.
And yeah, it just makes a lot of sense all the way around, but it needs services. So.
All right. So we have consensus on that one. Great.
Yeah.
All right, the next one is Beach Restoration Coastal Stabilization Project. And it's my understanding that obviously there's been a lot of repairs and restoration going on after the hurricanes and everything, but there's still some sand loss that needs to be replaced, and there's a $27 million gap that's needed between what's being provided with grants and FDOT and U.S. Army Corps. And so before we can get to the beach management plan and start management and maintenance for the future, we need to, just recoup that sand loss. And that amount that we still need on the gap is $27 million. So that's what we're looking for. And then we can move into a maintenance program that I know that is part of that beach management plan, and the county is working on that as well, and how to fund that in the future.
Well, this is important, as you know. At the end of Flagler Drive right now, we've already lost the 6 cubic yards we just put in.
Right.
So, this is, and that is a gap filler. If you look at the funding, the big funding for the whole beach management plan, that's what the $27 million is to fill that gap that we don't have. and it's a one-time cost. We hope to establish our own pot of money starting next year to fund beach renourishment, but we got to get through this first year. So any help they can give us on the 27 million is, we
Right.
need it. Anything that they give us.
Well, and they've done that in the past where they don't necessarily give you the whole 27 million.
Right.
Maybe they give you half of what you requested. And that's a possibility, but yes, as you said, anything would help. So, but that is the gap that we're looking for. That's
Yeah,
the amount that would get us.
Renner gagged when I gave him the $95 million thing. He gagged.
Yeah.
And so he said,
I think last
this is a
year,
lot less.
I think last year it was over
Just have
100
one question.
A
million.
lot less. Yes, sir.
Well, the beach management plan we just got briefed on, seemed to me, we talked about $100 million up to begin. This 27 does not involve with that,
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it
This is the last chunk of money we need
or that upfront.
for the whole upfront, to do the whole thing.
Okay, okay.
This is to get everything back to
Everything, get it
where
back
it was
to
pre-storms. And then the management plan would kick in once we work on
Okay.
funding that. But
The beach management plan, we don't have a plan yet.
Right.
I think we know what we're going to do up to Jungle Hut, but after Jungle Hut, then we get into the compensation for covering the rocks or not covering the rocks and going.
And we don't
we
have
got-
any
we got a
more
lot-
hurricanes.
We have some more problems to deal with on that now.
right?
Whatever we
nothing
can
else?
get here. Yeah.
Okay. And the last one is stormwater infrastructure improvements and resiliency project. So we tried to keep this kind of vague again, so this way we're not pigeonholed to one particular road or one particular canal. We wanted to keep it open. And so there are currently many county roadways and canals that regularly experience flooding during seasonal extreme precipitation events. They cause erosion of roadways, and obviously there's overtopping of banks at various canals. To resolve these problems, a stormwater master plan is being developed and projects are being identified. There are several roadway projects and canals in need of stormwater-related improvements for drainage efficiency and to reduce flood frequency of the areas developed. So these proposed improvements would include regrading of roadside swales and ditches, upsizing of cross-drain culverts, pond siting and property acquisition, and acquiring easements to access drainage facilities for maintenance. The canals that would be identified need to be widened and have a standard revetment installed to protect against erosion and increase flood storage capacity. So what we've done is we've also included what are the potential communities that would be impacted or benefited by the project implementation. So you see those here. And then also, what are the potential communities indirectly benefited by restoration of canals? And that's the west side communities. So the critical assets of Flagler County or pertinent facilities that would benefit by restoration of the canals are a lot of our community centers and Old Hammock Plantation Wastewater Treatment Center and so on. So we'd like to get about 1.5 million. That's just for PD&E, just so you know, that's for planning design, because even though you have projects that you have listed projects, you have to go to design before you can actually go to construction. So we'd like to get about 1.5 million towards planning and design and development.
Well, it's a picture of Malacompra Canal.
Yes,
And that's.
it is.
We washed out 5 places there, so.
That is one of the canals that is on
We need
their,
to look at that.
that's
Really,
on
so-
their list of to-dos. So, and again, I could have called out Malacompra here, but I understand there's also a grant pending, so that if they get that money for the grant, with the grant, we could put this money to something else. So that's why we kept it more vague and asked for 1.5 million towards planning and development. And this way, once we have the development design and everything's ready to go, we'll have shelf-ready projects, which, are better for grant requests.
Okay, just, Mr. Chairman, just.
Yeah, Dave.
This kind of project, if I'm sitting up in the legislature and I say, well, why don't, it's priorities on the county's budget. Why aren't they covering this if it's so important, why do they need additional money in their budget to do this? So that just part of the justification that needs to be there too, right?
Well, yeah. And sure, we could do this, but then we don't do something else.
Well, I know, but we're saying this is very high priority. So if I'm if I'm trying to say fight this, I'd say, well,
That's a good point.
yeah, and so just be ready for those arguments. And okay, but that's true of almost everything that's in here.
Well, there's, again, depending on how we push this, it's a lot of funding for resiliency projects and the protection of assets. So, I mean, the jail, some of these others that are on here, and the communities, including the community centers, could be just enough to, and the fact that we've already done the stormwater master plan, we've done the background work to be able to justify these needs.
My understanding is there's about 100 projects that have been identified, and this really would only cover maybe a top 3.
Okay.
Yep. Well, Mr. Nance is correct. We've already got the survey that tells us what our problems are. So, yeah, good. All right.
So that was the last one. And so now I just need consensus for when I come back on September 18th. My hope is to have a final document like this one. There won't be any presentation, it'll just be this, which will give you your listed policy and funding priorities with the background requested action and then the effect it would have or the impact it would have. And that's what will be in this. And so if there's something that you don't want in here included,
We have one.
right,
One in
like
there.
we talked about Old Kings Road, if we can't get that resolved, we'll exclude that. And of course, the general aviation terminal will reduce that to 5 million as requested. But if there's anything else at this point, this is the time to do that, so that when I come back on September 18th, we might be able to just put it on the consent agenda rather than on general business.
One thing I didn't mention earlier, the medical facility, since Snyder's here, is that looking like something that looks good for this year with the legislature? I mean, that is a pretty big ask there.
It's a big ask, yeah.
It is a big ask.
Does Bob have any thoughts? I mean, has he been working that? Or?
I mean, I'm sure they're going to push it from their end, but the Department of Health is a department of state government.
Right,
So it
no, I
is
know. I'm
theirs.
just wondering if, as long as Bob's here.
Yeah, we're actually asking for money for the state
Right.
government or state medical.
Right.
We have what?
Bob Snyder, the 3 main reasons is, our current health department is 34 years old. We have completely run out of space. We've added new services. We've expanded over the last 10 years. Number 2, 78% of our patients and clients come from Palm Coast. And that is, primarily where we serve. So the idea would be to relocate WIC and relocate all of our clinical services, all of our nursing clinics, HIV, primary care, all the things that we do involving our providers and nurses, is move all of that to this location. And then the other benefit is, this concept of a no wrong door approach to care and navigation of services and access to social and health care. So Flagler Cares, the health department, and 12 other entities that comprise the Flagler County Village and the marketplace would also be conjoined there. So we all would be co-located. These are all social service organizations, healthcare entities that refer to each other. So ease of referral, one-stop shopping, no wrong door approach to care and navigation is what we're going to be modeling there.
Commissioner O'Brien brought up a good point, that we're required to give you space, but we're not required to give those other entities space. So is that a problem with the state if we try to build facility that houses not only you, but all these other people?
I don't believe it'll be a problem because the Department of Health, thinking of our community health assessment, community health improvement plan, they really, really encourage community partnerships. We are not in this battle, our challenges alone. So to be co-located with everyone is a real positive
Will you
when it
still-
comes to the
building you're
Department
in
of
now,
Health.
will it still be used?
It'll still be used. It'll be our our pediatric dental practice. We can relocate the environmental health department to where WIC is now, administrative services, the diabetes program. So the existing space will be used for those purposes, including finance and accounting, vital stats. So we can relocate all those activities from the county-owned buildings that we're in now, consolidate everyone in Benel, who is down the street, and then the county can have those 3 entities back to be used for whatever purpose that might be priority at the time.
Yeah, and we own those condos, right? Yeah,
We have a total of 3 that we
yeah,
own.
3 condos we own, yeah, okay.
And the other question is, since it's going to be within the geographical area, Palm Coast, is Palm Coast since it's a state ask, it's not the county, are they supporting this or doing anything with it?
Heidi, I'm sorry, I'm going to pass the baton to you because I know Heidi has been meeting with Denise and her team and Mayor Alphen about this, so I'm not sure about the details there.
We have met, as Bob has stated, several times to talk about it, and they recognize the fact that it will be helping to serve their community. However, they view this as more of a county ask and something that the county is responsible to work with the Department of Health, but they are willing to provide a letter of support for this that would accompany the ask.
What's going to happen, maybe it won't happen, I wouldn't even say it. I mean, if it comes down to, though, Palm Coast has some priority going along, and it comes down to one or the other, if this seems like a pretty high priority if we're going to do this on the health side, I hate to see it get, something happen to it because, say, Palm Coast has, pushes for something else somehow. Well, of course, it's state health.
At a minimum, we should get a letter of support.
Yeah.
And maybe we can remind them about all the effort we helped on the Mednex legislative asks when those came along.
Right.
So,
And I think an important point is that the statutes in the state of Florida, they do regard public health services as both a state and a local responsibility. With the local entities in all 67 counties, we're the Board of County Commissioners, mainly responsible for space, location, and even some counties, provide furniture and equipment and vehicles and all of that. But no, we're happy if you all would just provide us with the space to meet the needs of our community. Last 2022, we provided 156,000 services the Public Health Department did to 35,000 residents of our community. So we touch many, 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 many lives. So thank you for the consideration and support.
And we have supported you 100%.
Yes, you have.
Right.
Yes, you have. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, so I just, 2 things, need consensus on, other than the 2 things that we talked about, everything else you're good to move forward with. And then the second thing is, I'm going to make a recommendation, and I know last year we didn't number anything, but because we have so many projects on here, and because beside the booklet itself that we provide to them is going to be a unified booklet, which will have them each item will be put into themes, okay? So might be community resiliency, public health and safety. So, and we're going to be combined with the city of Palm Coast, the city of Flagler Beach. So we will also provide our local delegation with a copy of the actual written, and also when we go to do the rack card, which we give them, we put these, and even if you don't put a number there, they're going to look at the order that they're in. And if there's not enough money to fund all these, because I didn't add it up, to be honest with you, so I don't know what the total request is, but I'm going to say it's probably upwards of about 80 million. And with, is it 100? Okay, so it's 100 million. It's a big ask for just us. That's not including the cities, our municipal partners. So if they start looking at this and going down the order, they may stop.
You may draw a line.
Yeah, and draw a line on an important project. So while I normally wouldn't ask you to number these, I do want the funding priorities in particular numbered.
Well, we got to see the list, I think.
Oh,
Put the list up.
I'll get you back to the list. Sorry.
Hunger Games.
Yeah.
I'll get back. I should have put it at the end again. There's so much. All right, here we go. There's your list. So we're taking off the Old Kings Road. If we wind up putting it back on, you can tell me what number to put it into. So, and we're reducing the amount of the general aviation terminal, but that doesn't affect its location on here. So if you could number the rest, I'd really appreciate it.
Wow, okay.
I don't think number one that's there now is number one.
I feel like the water is really critical. As crazy as that sounds.
Put the FGA.
The FGUA?
Yeah, because it opens up this whole possibility down in that area.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
I kind of think that's true.
Okay,
So let's start with that one.
all right.
From an economic development standpoint, I mean, it could boost
You could, yeah.
a lot.
Yeah, so let's start with that
So I
as
think
one.
Okay.
It fits a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
How about number 2?
So
I kind of like the Regional Conservation and Ecotourism Educational Center.
Well, I would.
That's just me.
I like that one, but I also, the other one I like is the beach restoration again, because you were saying that's so important that we,
Well, we want to get something out of that, yeah.
but I'd say
What about the public health?
that's up.
It would probably be, I'm going to go with 2 only because of the background work and how ready it is the
Right.
Ecotourism Conservation Center. I
Well,
mean, it's well thought out and it's ready.
Which one,
to go,
Andy?
The Eco.
The Eco Center? Yeah, there's 2.
Yeah.
But then as we go down, I think the health one is probably got to be right up there.
Of course, I'm a little prejudiced, but I would think 3 would be beach restoration, 4 would be public health, social services, 5 would be construct the new general aviation terminal,
I was
and
hoping,
then after that.
could we make sure that we just kind of cover, this is a mess right now already, so I think the beach is very important. So we starting 1 with water, 2 with the ecotourism,
Yeah,
number 3, the beach, correct?
right?
And to me, because the aviation terminal has FDOT funding, I don't know that that's a priority over getting either 304 done, because that's a big project for us, cost-wise, or getting our fairgrounds, which is just stayed on the capital improvement list forever. So,
Well,
I think I
kind of think the medical thing should
oh,
be
I'm sorry,
4.
yes. And
Should be
then
4,
to round out number 5, sorry.
and then 5, what did you have?
Either the
Road
304
304.
or the fairgrounds. The fairgrounds would expand out our emergency preparedness.
I think that's really important. It has to do,
Yeah,
as a
I mean, we were
special
gonna
needs
change-
I think
We were
component.
going to change the emphasis there.
Yeah,
to
I
start
think
with
the,
emergency.
fairgrounds next, and then County Road 304.
Yeah, because
And
that's a
that
large
kinda in that order?
project that we need to,
Yeah,
it's a 27 million.
so how's that looking?
You got 6 now, so You have,
After that, we can just kind of, Don, did you have something that?
What do we have left now?
you have the construct the general aviation terminal, the acquisition of conservation lands, and the stormwater infrastructure.
If we put conservation lands in,
That'd be
it's
the
a
next
highly likely it'll get funded, and it's probably our last shot at getting a lot of that
Yeah, that'd
land.
probably be the next one.
Okay.
7.
And then you just have the stormwater improvements, and then the general aviation terminal. And if Old Kings Road comes back on, I'll put it as last.
Yeah. I'd say next to last, the stormwater projects for the reason that Commissioner Sullivan brought up.
And you want the aviation terminal last?
Aviation terminal, the next to third from the bottom, yeah. Does that work? We get them all?
So what I have, I'll go over it. FGUA utility expansion is number 1. Regional conservation and ecotourism is number 2. Beach restoration is number 3. Expand access to public health, that's number 4. Improvements to the recreation with the emphasis on emergency preparedness, 5. 6 is the County Road 304 resurfacing and bridges. 7 is support acquisition of conservation lands. 8 is stormwater infrastructure improvements. And 9 is construct a new general aviation terminal. And should the Old Kings Road come back on, it would wind up number 10.
Oh, that sound.
So 7 is wildlife, say 8 again?
I'm sorry, 7 is support acquisition of conservation lands.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then 8?
8 is stormwater infrastructure improvements and resiliency project.
And 9?
Is construct a new general aviation terminal.
The only one I would question would be 3 and 4. And the reason I say that is the public health thing is a new thing this year, whereas the beach restoration is there. I mean, I think everybody is up to speed on that. You know, it's in the public, and we've been doing pretty well on that. So that's the only ones I disagree with. I would switch 3 and 4.
Any other comments on that?
I would switch 8 and 9. I don't know that the stormwater one is going to be well received for some of the comments, other than potentially resiliency funding, but that could be done through grants and maybe not through the legislative ask.
Well, we have 9 right now. Keep in mind that when Speaker Renner receives the House forms, he will not push forward anything that he doesn't think has a chance or doesn't support. Right. So we may not wind up with 9 of them.
Mr. O'Brien, I thought you wanted to say something.
No, as I've said in the past, I'm against all ranking, period. However, if from a priority standpoint, top 2 for me would be the utility expansion and then also public health facilities in Palm Coast. So,
But I don't think we're going to number these things, but
No.
I think if, whatever order we put them in, they're going to look at that.
So you're just going to put them in order, you're not going to put numbers next to them?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put numbers with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're going to look.
I can live with that a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No, it's just that if they start adding it up, going down, they might say, okay, we're only going to fund to this point. Then again, they might pick from here and there, it's, who
well,
knows?
it ends up becoming a combination of a lot of things.
Right.
It becomes conversations we have with our lobbyists, what they know from, inside priorities are from their discussions with legislators, and then, what the hot button items are for our legislators, which we kind of know, but, could change over time too.
That's
so.
true. But I think in this, I could be wrong in this, but I would think that the assumption is the order they see them in is the order of importance to the community. And maybe Speaker Renner will give more emphasis to those items higher up on the list. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
So are we still good with that, or?
Did you want to switch the two at the bottom? Is that what you
That's
want to do?
just my own thought. So,
Which one?
Which ones are we switching?
Well, we're not switching anything yet. We just want to see if you're hard over.
Yeah,
by
I
doing
mentioned
something,
the
say
3
we
and
ought to
4,
switch it, but-
switch 3 and 4.
So you would rather beach,
I'd rather do public health ahead of the beach restoration,
Well, that pains me.
or, which,
I think it'll all, I think a majority of it will
Yeah, I can
hopefully.
live
I don't know
with
if
that.
that
Get
makes
dealt
that much big a difference, but that's just my thought.
I think from a community standpoint, I mean, it's tough. I mean, the beach is, hardening the beach is a critical component. The health, expansion of the health is, especially in the center of town, is a huge improvement. It's different.
Yeah, I know.
That's why Donnie doesn't want to
That's
rank
why
them.
Donnie is,
I don't know. My sense is to leave the beach 3 and medical 4, but I'll bow to the majority, Your Honor.
I don't think it matters.
Huh?
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
It's in the top 5. I think
Right.
it'll be all
Yeah. Okay, so read them off.
Okay, 1, FGUA, utility expansion. 2, Regional Conservation and Ecotourism Center. 3, beach restoration. 4, expand access to public health. 5, improvements to field fairgrounds, emergency preparedness. 6, County Road 304, resurfacing and multiple bridge replacements. 7, acquisition of conservation lands. 8, stormwater infrastructure improvements. And 9, construct a new general aviation terminal.
I can live with that. We need a
Just a
consensus here.
Good.
okay.
Okay? Andy?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay,
Leanne?
Yes, sir.
You got it.
thank you.
Next, I'll open to public comment. Anybody in the public wish to comment on our legislative agenda? The mic is now open. Seeing no one approach, I'll bring it back to the commission, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
That was well done. Thank you.